Here we go. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And tonight, because I'm recording this at 11 o'clock, that means we get to talk about Pep Chavarria to Chelsea is a here we go. The deal has been agreed. It's an absolute steal. Xabi Alonso has got his man. Blueco dug in their heels with what is one of the most weird negotiations in terms of how it's gone and how long it's taken, especially for a player of the price that we're talking about. So, Pep Chavarria, here we go. Let's have a look at the news. Fabrizio Romano posted this: Chelsea agreed deal to sign Pep Chavarria from Rayo Vallecano. Here we go. This might be the most relieved I've been to see those three words this window. Deal done for Spanish left-back, a 19 million euros fixed fee plus 2 million euro add-ons. Chavarria will now fly for medical and contract signing. Club-to-club signatures happening tonight. And just to give us the update in real money, Chelsea Dodgers posted this: Pep Chavarria to Chelsea, here we go. £16.2 million fixed fee and 1.7 million in add-ons. The player will now fly for medical and contract signing, club-to-club signatures, blah, 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 blah. Same as before. The difference obviously here is just the handy euros to pounds conversion that Chelsea Dodgers always does, and I love that. £17.9 million. That's not 40, is it? Look, you got to give props to Blueco, Xabi Alonso, Dave Fallows for sticking this out, because this is clearly, obviously, a player that Xabi Alonso really, really wanted. There are lots of left-backs on the market as well, like, you know, Maxi Araujo, Lewis Hall is still available, albeit because of the price. Even Man United might be a little bit put off now. Cambiasso from Juventus, as soon as Cucurella left, it was like, oh, look at these 6 left-backs that are available on the market at the moment. But no, the guy that Xabi Alonso wanted was this guy, and it's like, I personally feel that Blueco would love to have spent 60 mil on Lewis Hall after selling him for 30 mil in the first place. We did have the 20%, sell-on clause, and if he does get sold, that's more money in the coffers, isn't it? So, but ultimately, I think that this is a weird one. It's like, it's not the most exciting. Like, obviously, when we signed Morgan Rogers, I was doing backflips. Do you know what I mean? I was absolutely buzzing. This one isn't the same as that, because it's not the most endorphin-filling signing. But what it is the absolute massive statement alongside the likes of Jordan Henderson and Danny Welbeck. Xabi Alonso is getting the players that he wants, and they're finding creative ways to negotiate and to get these players that he's really interested in on cheap deals as well. And the reason that this is like interesting, because, you know, as Chelsea fans, what we're all used to now is we buy young players, that's where all the potential is and stuff. You know, and obviously we've gone quite far the other way with the likes of Jordan Henderson and Danny Welbeck. But with Xabi Alonso in particular, you've only got to take a brief look into history at his time at Bayer Leverkusen, where he took players like a 28-year-old Grimaldo at the time, same as Pep Chavarria, and like a 31-year-old Granit Xhaka, and turned them into these undefeated title-winning monsters. Do you know what I mean? So, albeit I am as excited as the rest of you to see what long-term Xabi Alonso can do with a lot of the young stars, because, you know, young stars potential, that's where a lot of the excitement is in football, isn't it? But like I say, with Xabi Alonso, we've literally seen him take players that have not had amazing careers. You know, Grimaldo was a Barcelona reject. Granit Xhaka had been a bit of a journeyman sort of. He spent a bit of time at Arsenal, really up and down there. Do you know what I mean? Really up and down there. And, you know, you'd never have thought we'd be looking at Granit Xhaka like the player he is now. And 3-4 years ago, you'd never have thought that Alejandro Grimaldo at left wing back would be getting 20 plus GA a season. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely wild stuff. So that influence is the Xabi Alonso effect, right? And look, I'm hoping that with players, I mean, there's arguments to say maybe he should be doing that with the likes of Tosin Adarabioyo as well, but, he didn't choose these players, he didn't decide on these players, he has decided on Pep Chavarria, because from the player profile and the personality, which is really important as well, because this is a big part of what Dave Fallows is bringing to the table, right? When they're looking at players, they are identifying more so the intangible things, that they're bringing into the squad, not just technical ability, worth, age, profile, whatever. They're being like, what's this guy like to be around? Can he mentor people? Will he G up the dressing room? Will he cause problems? Will he throw his toys out of the pram? So I would imagine that Pep Chavarria is going to be a consummate professional who is going to come in and do exactly what it is that he needs to do. And look, you never know, man. Like I say, Grimaldo it's an absolute beast. I was disappointed that we didn't look at Grimaldo, to be completely honest. I think he's gone to Atletico Madrid at this point, which is probably a really good move for him. But here's hoping that Pep Chavarria, for this Chelsea team, because he is a different profile to Grimaldo as well, you know, here's hoping that Pep Chavarria, for this Chelsea team, is a similar story, that yes, he's a little bit older, he's a bit further towards the end of his career, but maybe with Xabi Alonso and this environment, he can turn him into an absolute beast. So guys, that's it. It's over. The drama of dealing with Rayo Vallecano is over for now. And look, this is another thing that should tell you how much Xabi Alonso wanted this player, because this has been a mean negotiation, man. They invited us in for 12 mil. We were like, well, we're looking at this player, we like the look of him, we're thinking about 12 mil, and they're like, yeah, come on, we'll talk to you about 12 mil. And then it was like, yeah, we want 22, 23, and then it was like, right, okay, that's a bit of a jump, but Xabi really wants the player, so I guess we'll stay in it. And you know, then the 20 mil bid was being talked about, and then bam, no, release clause please, that's 40 million, and then it's like, whoa, what's going on here? And somehow, even despite all of that, maybe it's, I don't even know how they've managed this, to be completely honest. Maybe it's Blueco are going to add them to the multi-club model, do you know what I mean, so they can inject some money into it. I'm not even sure, but somehow we've managed to get Pep Chavarria negotiated down from 40 million, which is where it was at the last time I write in, down to 17.9 million, which is even cheaper than the second offer. Do you know what I mean? Ultimately, this is probably the kind of signing that Chelsea had. Like, I'm surprised the add-ons are so small, to be honest. £1.7 million in add-ons seems like a really small amount to have been negotiating for such a long time for. So look, the thing, Rayo Vallecano, what I've learned about from a lot of you guys in the comments, is they're an unusually run club. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I'll be interested to see what more comes out about this in the future, or whether that's just it now and we don't hear anything more. But I would be fascinated to find out some of how this went on. Do you know what I mean? Like, what the issues were. Was it just Rayo Vallecano being difficult to deal with? Because like I say, there is some stuff out there to say that the club is run in quite an unusual manner already. But either way, it's all over. Pep Chavarria signing the paperwork tonight, doing the medical tomorrow. I hope that means that he's going to join up with the pre-season squad as soon as possible and get into the team. It's one of those where all of a sudden it's like, this was turning into like, oh yeah, we just need to add a few players into the squad. Like, it's turning into a big rebuild now. Do you know what I mean? What is it? We've, you know, Marco Palestra, Morgan Rogers, Pep Chavarria, Danny Welbeck, Jordan Henderson. Add on top of that, Giovanni Kenda, Mike Penders, arguably Emmanuel Omega, but he, you know, without Emmanuel Omega, let's say potentially he's going to go out on loan. Dastan Satpayev, you know, that's not to mention all the academy players, but we're looking at 8 new players. It's not just signings, it's new players to the squad. We're adding 8 new players to the squad already. There's still more talks about going in for a midfielder, which is something that we're going to get onto in a minute. Not about the midfielder, but the situation behind it. We might have to go in for more defensive reinforcements if we are going to sell all of Tosin Adarabioyo, Benoit Badiashile and Axel Disasi. Maybe Joshua Champon gets a loan somewhere because he's not really been looking up to it yet. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's scary to think that there's still 3 weeks, a good solid 3 weeks left of the window, and we might not be done. Do you know what I mean? We might not be done. What I would have thought is outgoings now seems to be the thing, and the rest of this video is all going to be about outgoings. But either way, for now, Pep Chavarria added to the squad, and I'm buzzing for it. Look, like I say, for me, I'm just excited about the fact that Xabi Alonso obviously wanted this player so much, and the player obviously was really keen on the move as well, and I imagine that's part of what's greased the wheels and helped it through, is the player's probably been pushing, but here he is. Let me know what you think about our new left-back signing in the comments. And guys, if you've made it this far into today's episode of the Stamford Sync, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, so next up, there's a little bit more news about Malo Gusto, and we're going to talk about Enzo Fernandez as well. But first, Chelsea Dodgers posted this just in. Malo Gusto could leave Chelsea. They have opened the door to a potential exit following the signing of Marco Palestra. Chelsea want £75 million. Every time I read that, I'm like, that's wild. Man City are interested, but not at that price. One to watch, that is via Fabrice Hawkins. So, we heard about Manchester City being interested, and yet earlier today, in fact, or it might be tomorrow by the time this video gets out, but recently, we also talked about the fact that PSG are now keeping an eye on him as well. So the other interesting thing is this. Chelsea Dodgers posted this. Several top clubs have inquired about Malo Gusto in recent weeks. So far, none have made a move. Several. I mean, that's from Mercato, which is a French sport publication. And Mercato is French for market, so it's like a transfer-related thing. 2 clubs isn't several, is it? Like, you know, you can only analyse words so much, I guess, but Man City and PSG isn't several clubs. Like 3 or 4 clubs, maybe you can consider several clubs. A few clubs, a couple of clubs. But maybe there's more to the Malo Gusto thing than meets the eye. And I'm not going to lie to you, I can see why he's an attractive proposition for a lot of clubs, but not necessarily at that money. Do you know what I mean? I just, you know, I'd love, don't get me wrong, would love to see it. Of course I would. We bought Malo Gusto for £26 million when he was 20 years old. That was about 2 or 3 years ago. So even if we sold him for 50, we're making 35 plus mil profit. Do you know what I mean? We're making a chunky amount on Malo Gusto. Ultimately, for a player that never was supposed to be a first teamer. It's kind of weird with Malo Gusto, isn't it? Because when we got Malo Gusto, he was brought to be backup to Reece James at right back. Reece James gets injured, like injured, and now Reece James has come back. Reece James not the same player. Reece James is the Reece James we've got now is very different from the Reece James that we had 2 or 3 seasons ago, because he's not a right back or a right wing back anymore. Maybe he can play right back in a more defensive manner, but he used to be able to bomb up and down, and he was one of the best in the world at doing it. But he can't do that anymore. He's a midfielder and right centre back now. Malo Gusto took advantage of Reece James' initial injury and kind of solidified himself as the number 1 right back in the squad. And then when Enzo Maresca came in, all of a sudden it was like, bam, I'm going to play you everywhere. So even when Reece James came back from his injury, Malo Gusto still mainly stayed in the team. Like, he's been pretty much our first team right back for the last 2 seasons. You know, Reece James played a lot last year, but it was largely at right centre back and in midfield. So Malo Gusto, at 22, 23 years old, like, he's been playing in the Champions League, he's won trophies with us, he's still really young, and, you know, as far as we can see, there's a lot of profit to be made there. So I'm curious as to who else might even go in for him. City obviously makes the most sense, and mate, I'm starting to feel like this transfer trio of Enzo Fernandez, Pedro Neto and Malo Gusto to City might even be a strange possibility. Do you know what I mean? It would be so crazy if it was. But, you know, PSG kind of makes sense as well. But who else really is going to be that interested in him? Spanish clubs? Don't know. Maybe Barcelona. I could see Malo Gusto at Barcelona. But at the same time, you know, I'm sure we'll hear more about this soon, albeit it does sound like at the moment City are the most interested, and that makes the most sense, because not only has he played for the manager before, no other manager is going to use Malo Gusto like Enzo Maresca did, and if Malo Gusto liked playing that way, then it makes sense, doesn't it? So I expect to start hearing more about Malo Gusto now, do you know what I mean? Because he's going to be back soon as well, obviously. Like, next week, everyone from the World Cup will be back. Do you know what I mean? Enzo Fernandez and Argentinians, English guys, and obviously French players are all going to start coming back into their squads over the next week or so. So maybe that's why we're starting to hear a little bit more about Malo Gusto. Now, what do you think's going to happen with him? Like, I know a load of you guys are saying we should keep him, and I don't disagree with that at all, and I don't think Chelsea would mind if it feels, or starting to feel a bit like the Enzo Fernandez situation, right? Maybe 75 mil is the price. Maybe that is the only price that we're willing to sell him at. Like, it feels like that is too much for Malo Gusto, if I'm being completely honest. But maybe it's because in a similar vein to Pedro Neto and a similar vein to Enzo Fernandez, it's like, yeah, okay, cool, you can buy these guys if you want, but equally we're happy to keep them around the squad unless someone meets our price. It's not like we're desperate to sell these guys. You know, we'll sell one of them at the very least, but, maybe we'll sell all 3, I don't know. But maybe that's the thing. Maybe because all 3 of these players kind of fit into the same situation where they're all for sale at the right price, but at the same time, the manager and Bluco will be happy to keep them around if no one comes in with the right bids. Maybe we really will only sell these guys at that top price with no negotiation. So sticking with the trio, we're going to talk a little about Enzo Fernandez. So Pice posted this via Luca Bedoni of Di Marzio. Maresca wants Enzo Fernandez to replace Rodri. So the Rodri thing is really interesting. It seemed like Real Madrid. Like, it just seemed like that's what it was going to be. And then all of a sudden, Barcelona swooping out of nowhere. And I think it's because Real Madrid weren't willing to pay whatever it was that Man City wanted. But Barcelona now have sniffed blood and they've gone, we'll have a bit of that. And Rodri's been like, yeah, cool, I'll go to Barcelona. So Rodri just wants out of the Prem at the end of the day. So, and Spain, obviously being a Spanish player, he's won, do you know what I mean? He's won the Euros, he's won the World Cup with Spain, and now he probably wants to go and win a Spanish title, doesn't he? Because he used to play for Atletico Madrid. I'm not sure if he won the title while he was there. But Rodri now looks like he's on his way to Barcelona. So that is going to leave Man City light one top level midfielder. Now the thing is, Enzo Fernandez, Rodri, not the same players, but They've just spent 116 mil on Elliot Anderson, and I'm not sure what's going on with it, but they've been strongly linked to Buadi as well. So they're already looking at replacing their defensive midfield. They've lost Bernardo Silva as well, which is another big thing. They're looking at selling Tiani Reinders to Nottingham Forest. So there's outgoings happening at City at the moment. And maybe that makes sense for Enzo Fernandez, do you know what I mean, to be the marquee signing, the next big marquee signing for their midfield. And if they do go in for Pedro Neto and Malo Gusto, then we all know how City are going to be playing next season, don't we? It'll be really interesting to see if that very boring style of football works a lot better with an Erling Haaland at the top rather than a João Pedro or a Liam Delap. Obviously, it's going to work better than it did with a Liam Delap. But it wasn't very focused on getting the ball to the strikers, do you know what I mean? And also, like, João Pedro played a lot in the 10 and the strikers were drifting wide and dropping deep a lot. That's not really Erling Haaland's thing. So he'd have to cater it to Erling Haaland because he's literally Erling Haaland. But you can, if they at least get Gusto and Enzo Fernandez off of us for nearly £200 million, which is wild, absolutely wild. Maresca looks like it's not particularly original and it's very, very expensive, but maybe Maresca is looking to recreate the exact same formation and set of tactics at Man City that he had at Chelsea. And last but not least, we're going to talk about something just a little bit different. Potent posted this via the site Philips Subsport Stack. It's actually been in and around for a couple of days now, but this was posted today. Backroom changes are possibly on the horizon. As well as that, Blueco are getting to work now on some of the tasks they have had hanging over them for some years now, including a new front of shirt sponsor. So look, Christmas has come early for Chelsea fans, man. It's like we've got the ideal manager, we've made marquee signings, we've brought experience into the team. We've, Cole Palmer is fit, although be it he missed the last preseason game, but, Cole Palmer and Levi Colwill are fit and coming back into the team as well. We're looking to, make some changes and stuff. I'm still sad to see Cucurella go. I won't be very sad to see the likes of Malo Gusto and Enzo Fernandez go, but we're refreshing the team. And like I say, bringing experience in is a big part of that. So Xabi Alonso is handling the club stuff, the squad stuff, the sporting project really well so far, and everything looks rosy. What was left is issues in the back room, like no front of shirt sponsor, and everyone and their dog has been talking about how bad what a bad job the sporting directors have done, right? And I can only assume backroom changes on the horizon, being the fact that it's all the sporting directors with Egbali and Bowley that are pictured in this tweet. Maybe we're going to start seeing some big change as well. Maybe Dave Fallows has come in and really, really made a splash. And, look, I mentioned this in a video the other day. They've done okay, not good enough, absolutely not good enough. What Chelsea want to be doing is getting in the Champions League consistently and winning trophies. But with their very broken model, they got us into 12th, but they took us up to 4th over the space of 3 years, and they won a couple of trophies along the way, and they've given us some of the best young players in the world, the likes of Moises Caicedo, Cole Palmer, Esteval Willian, João Pedro's looking like a phenomenal buy. It's not all bad, do you know what I mean? It's not all bad. So maybe there is a role for them in focusing on the wider recruitment for the Blueco model, right? Think about like Strasbourg, and there's some talks about us potentially, it wasn't in this tweet, but there's some murmurings about us potentially going back in for another club as well. Santos in Brazil had been mentioned. It's been known for a really long time that they'd love to get a Portuguese club, and you'd have to think it'd be Sporting Lisbon, wouldn't you? If they are going to invest in, maybe not as close to a buy out as they did with Strasbourg, but they're going to start investing in some of these other clubs. So maybe there is still a role for the likes of Winstanley and Stewart in finding young talent and, kind of subverting the loan system essentially, and using the multi-club model in order to kind of grow a lot more talent across the board, which ultimately can filter in and out of the Chelsea first team if the players are good enough. But they've proven that they're not equipped to deal with the day-to-day sporting direction and, for Chelsea in the Premier League and getting us into the Champions League. And look, you've only got to see how different things are now. From the instant we signed Xabi Alonso, things have been different. And you look at our team now, it is absolutely unrecognisable to the team that we finished last season with. So maybe it is, maybe Eghbali and Todd Bowley, well, more Eghbali because he's kind of the head honcho really, isn't he? Todd Bowley's just like, not even really sure what he's doing at the moment, to be honest. But maybe Eghbali is looking at this now and seeing the impact that Dave Fallows has had and how close, I assume, he's working with Xabi Alonso. To bring in leadership, to identify things that the team is missing. And, because Wyn Stewart and Stanley and all these guys, they will have just been telling Eghbali for all this time, we've just got to find the right young talent and it'll all click. But I imagine Xabi, they don't have footballing experience in the same way. Do you know what I mean? What you've got with Dave Fallows and what you've got with Xabi Alonso as a manager and a player, winning experience. Dave Fallows was part of putting together Liverpool's winning team, and that was with a mix of experience, youth, and not very expensive signings either. You got to think Andy Robertson, 5 mil. Where was it? Hull, I think it was. One of the best left backs in the world for like 3-4 years running. Jordan Henderson, albeit he wasn't like the most aesthetically pleasing player to watch on the pitch or anything, he had an enormous part to play in all of Liverpool's success. So it feels like the winds are changing, and the truth is, results are what matters. Do you know what I mean? So this will all be for nothing if we get 10 games in, we win 1, draw 2 and lose 7. Do you know what I mean? It's that, then we're in exactly the same situation that we were in before. I genuinely don't believe that's going to happen. So what do you think about this, guys? Do you think that there is actually some truth to the idea that maybe some of the, because we've got like 7 sporting directors, that probably needs trimming down the same way the squad needs trimming down, and a front of shirt sponsor? Could it finally be? Could we go into our 4th year of under Blueco and actually start it? Well, we haven't, I guess it starts on the 24th of August. Do we start on the 24th of August with a new front of shirt sponsor? Which doesn't seem like a big thing, but it's just money that's been thrown away. Like, 1 season is like fine, but we're looking at 4 seasons now, so it's hundreds of millions of pounds that they've foregone. We've had some temporary ones. Damak and Infinite Athlete was clean, actually. I like that one. Didn't really like the last one, but at the end of the day, they've managed to do it for like a few months here and there, but ultimately we're talking about hundreds of millions of pounds that they've missed out on, and these are other things that need to be sorted out. And maybe now, because Xabi Alonso and Dave Fallows have got such a good grip on the sporting project, the money people are getting over there and doing money things, and maybe we're going to see a lot more changes at Chelsea this season. Let me know what you think in the comments. So guys, that's it. I'm going to start wrapping the video up, but I want to know what you think about everything that we've talked about tonight. It's so late, man. Pep Chavarria, here we go. The deal has been done. It took a really long time, but it's a steal, man. 17.9 million pounds when they were quoting us 40 makes it worth the long negotiation, I think, in the long run. Malo Gusto, hot property, apparently drawing interest from lots of clubs, but everyone is kind of put off by the price. Enzo Maresca would like Enzo Fernandez to replace Rodri, which, like I say, player for player doesn't really make sense, but when you think about the fact they've already brought in Elliot Anderson, they're looking at bringing in Boadi, they've lost Bernardo Silva, they need an attacking player as well, so maybe that works out, and maybe we're going to get a nice chunk of change from City by the end of the window, and potential backroom changes, right? Maybe we're going to start seeing some of the sporting directors be shifted into different roles, and maybe we're going to see a front of shirt sponsor before the Premier League starts. Maybe not that soon, but hopefully. Nice one, guys. I hope you're all having a wicked evening or morning if you happen to catch this in the morning after. I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.